On Monday, September 12th, the Manchester Planning Commission held the first of two meetings to get public input on a project designed to simplify and streamline the town's land use regulations. Zoning district boundaries will also undergo a few changes to bring them into accordance with today's realities and tomorrow's goals. It's the first comprehensive, from-the-bottom-up review the town has conducted on its ordinances since the early 1980s, said Zoning Administrator Janet Hurley, who discussed with us why this review is needed.
So we're working on revising the Manchester Land Use and Development Ordinance, and the reason for that is because our current ordinance is overly complicated. It has multiple layers of zoning, such that if you have a particular parcel and you want to know what can I do on this parcel, the answer is not easily discernible from the ordinance right now. And so one of the main impetuses for this project is to simplify the ordinance and make it more easily understood. And that would be both beneficial to applicants and landowners who make applications to the town, but also to the town's, to the personnel that implement the ordinance. It'll make it much easier. So that's one reason. So another reason is that for many years now, the town has recognized that Manchester does not have the housing stock that it would need to support people who work in Manchester. And in order for that kind of workforce housing to be realized or developed in Manchester, there are clearly going to need to be some changes to the ordinance, and mostly that means increased density allowances. And so what this effort aims to do is, particularly in the core commercial area of town and the areas immediately surrounding it, is to allow for greater residential density. A third reason is that we have had for many years businesses that begin their existences in Manchester, but have to leave Manchester because there's nowhere for them to go when they become successful and grow. And so part of this effort is to try to change the zoning to allow for more of perhaps light industrial and other professional uses within the town.
Any thoughts and comments? We've been encouraging people who are thinking about businesses in various parts of town to really look at that use table and provide input as to what you would like to see.
Last Monday's meeting was launched by Brandy Saxton, a consultant who is working with Janet Hurley and the Planning Commission to develop new regulations which they hope to have ready for formal public hearings next spring. She led the roughly 30 people who attended Monday's meeting through proposed changes of 5 districts in town, beginning with the downtown district, where the biggest proposed change involved increasing the allowable residential density, which is currently 5 dwelling units, homes or apartments, per acre, up to 30.
Yeah, this is a very preliminary draft, and we're just taking it out to people to make them aware of what's going on and provide the maximum amount of time possible for people to think about it and provide meaningful input as we move forward.
And one of the issues that I know has emerged is the whole business around housing, and you had a question there towards the end about this. How will any of these changes encourage more affordable and or workforce housing?
Well, the first step that we've taken with what we've got drafted so far, or thinking about so far, is to just allow for more housing, by increasing densities and reducing lot sizes, and for allowing for multifamily and other forms of housing in more areas of town. So just trying to make the underlying conditions more conducive to housing development. As we go forward and are continuing to work, we'll be thinking about other options and incentives and ways to use the regulations to try to encourage the development of the types of housing the community wants. But the real first step is to just make the underlying zoning encourage and make it easier to build the kind of housing the community needs.
And last question, what districts will you be talking about on the 26th in that meeting?
We're going to be talking about the residential districts and then the rural districts in the outlying parts of town and a new tourism and recreation district as well.
Feedback was what Saxton and the other town officials were hoping for, and they heard from several members of the audience about various aspects of their proposal.
To be honest, I know a lot of work has gone into this, but when you show those pictures of Hanover, New Hampshire, as a suggestion of what Manchester, of what the zoning rewrite could result in, I was horrified. I mean, we have a historic townscape with buildings, the Factory Point building is a major exception. And to have 4 or more stories in a downtown based upon where we have largely traditional buildings of traditional design from different eras that are, I think, at most 3-story, with the exception of Factory Point Bank. To use what has happened in Hanover, New Hampshire, with those multi-story buildings, it looks like a European city. I mean, it's just, to me, it's inconceivable.
So you think that the Hanover example is basically too large a scale for Manchester?
Absolutely.
Elm Street has light industry, has foods. He's saying that you'd no longer allow for places like Al Ducci's or the glass shops that are down there.
So the food processing is not what Al Ducci's would fall under. That would be in the food services, and that would still be in there. The food processing would be like some place that was making food, manufacturing. So like the microbrewery or bakery, something that was production out,
So there used
not
to be a
retail.
bakery on Elm Street.
not
You're saying
retail.
something like the Lion's Share wouldn't be allowed again down Elm Street.
I don't know what the lion's share was, but if it was a production commercial bakery and not a retail food outlet, then. So you think that you'd like to see some of those industrial uses on Elm Street?
Well, I currently am an industrial use on Elm Street, so I feel like I should be concerned from light industrial.
You're not industrial. You do not fit the definition of light industrial.
Okay.
We're trying to bring more development into Manchester. You're trying to bring businesses in here. And this is a great way to bring Tractor Supply or whatever, and I agree with the design of it. But for years, we've pushed businesses out of this town because we're trying to keep it a tourist trap. I've lived here all my life. You could have had a beautiful trailer place over on the Dupree property that got shot down 40 years ago, which is a very nice facility that went to Fairhaven. I mean, you can put setbacks back, but you've got to start to bring some industry into this town so you can have some people here and make a living and live here. This is a start.
The presentation and discussion also covered several other districts, including the town center, mixed-use or residential and commercial districts, as well as an office industrial district. There are several proposed changes dealing with minimum lot sizes, setbacks, and building footprints, and allowable building heights, as well as the types of businesses or structures that would be allowed. For example, in the town center district, which basically covers the Depot Street corridor and Main Street south of the roundabout, the preliminary proposal adds multifamily residential housing, hotels and motels as permitted uses. Veterinary and animal services would be added as conditional uses, depending on what the applicant was seeking, and light industry would be eliminated as an allowed use. To get a detailed breakdown of the proposed revisions, go to the town's website or placesense.com/Manchester. The next meeting will cover the Tourism and Recreation District, Rural Residential and Agriculture Districts, and other residential districts. Even if members of the public can't make the next meeting on September 26th at Manchester Town Hall, residents will be able to weigh in at subsequent meetings of the Planning Commission.
This project is a year-long effort. It began in the spring of this year, 2016. It is being spearheaded by the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission is meeting twice a month, and on the second and fourth Mondays typically, and this is the primary focus of the Planning Commission's work in this year. They are going to start working on a town plan re-update revision as well in the coming months, but this is the primary focus. And so every single Planning Commission meeting, to some degree, will probably address the issues that are raised by this comprehensive reconsideration of the zoning ordinance and the zoning districts. And so every second and fourth Monday, and then if there are other meetings that fall outside of that, as happened earlier this year when we had the neighborhood walk-in talks, those would be publicized and the public would be invited. And as for this month, when we presented these preliminary maps and use tables and definitions, we sort of put a little bit of extra effort into getting the word out that we want public feedback at that point. So we had that meeting on Monday the 12th. We're having a second meeting on the 26th, where on the 12th we sort of talked about this area of town, and on the 26th we'll be going a little further out and talking about more rural areas of town. And then in October, the Planning Commission will take the feedback that it got at these two meetings and work on revisions to the preliminary information that was presented this month. So,
For the GNAT TV News Project, I'm Andrew McKeever.